Hey everybody, welcome to Animation Capstone. That's right, welcome. We've made it to week 3, almost a quarter of the way full. So we've gotten really good and really far rounded. So a lot of great things. Just to let you know, I just put your rubrics for this week, your project rubrics, and also put the live lecture announcements as well. So everything should be listed on your announcements. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, let me know. Good news is we have no discussion this week, so that's awesome. A little bit extra time gets you some time to help animate those title and end cards, really make them awesome. But that's really what we're going to be doing this week. We're going to be animating and really showcasing how animation really adds more to the title cards and the end cards. And I figure I'd do a quick review of motion graphics for film and how it kind of applies to it before we get into lecture this week on Tuesday. So that's really important. So let's do that. So a quick overview. Now, I know with motion graphics, everybody has a lot of experience with it and everything, but it's good to have just a quick overview of what it is and how it works and how we can utilize it in our demo reels a little bit. So motion graphics overall is a broad term that can cover any graphic element that employs animation. Now, a lot of times motion graphics are employed in every media capable of supporting it. We usually see this in a lot of different mediums. For example, broadcast media like film, television, and the web depend largely on motion graphics to convey information and capture the attention of the audience. Now, remember that animation and motion graphics are neither interchangeable nor identical. They just kind of focus on their own different elements in a way. They're the same, but they're not, really is the key. And so that's why we really use it and we really utilize a lot of it from that aspect. And that's what we're going to focus on. So remember that animation and motion graphics are neither interchangeable nor identical. They have their own characteristics, but they kind of have the same concepts about them. Now, with film with motion graphics, film represents the history of motion graphics in general. How we started from a very, talky version of visuals to now we go into animation and full details with them. And in the first films, they still use placards on recorded cameras, a lot of times to where they could show different changes in scenes, transitions, even for audio, because a lot of times dialogue and narration was really focused on silent stories because we really haven't been able to develop sound waves in TVs yet. So that's why title cards and specific placards were important for those concepts. Now, over time, of course, we've added sound, audio, and then we've tried to match up audio to showcase and really immerse audiences into that a little bit more. And animation was just as popular as live action, but far more laborious to create. Back in the day, and I'm not talking about just a couple, years ago. I'm talking about like 20, 30 years ago, before we have 3D animation, 2D animation really go to the digital age. A lot of these were handwritten. And if you look at it from a concept a long time ago, like original ones like Lion King, Little Mermaid from the early 90s, those were actually written, they were actually hand drawn. And that's the thing about animation compared to like live film, very hard to redo. And especially back a few decades ago where we had to rewrite every single drawing and every single animation and draw those out specifically. Now with computers, it's a little bit different. And especially now in the past decade or so with the real improvements with those supporting tools such as Maya and 3ds Max have really improved it beyond that. And a lot of things about that is that we started seeing animated titles come into play a little bit more in the 60s, specifically because then we started adding drawing to those placards and really add them specifically. Alfred Hitchcock wanted something special for his film North by Northwest. The animated titles that set the tone for that movie. So we started to see about the 60s, we're starting to see, and 50s and 40s, we started to see animated titles to really play that apart and really add more to that. Now, with television, they use motion graphics all the time. We see this a lot in like news and sports and all these things that work with that. And today's television is the largest media in the world, and the average American spends almost about 3 hours a day watching television. It's kind of crazy, right? And with the advent, with the invention of computer animation, it makes motion graphics significantly less expensive. So because everything was like hand-drawn and added on originally, now with the digital age, it's much easier to add to film and live action sports and elements with that. And between programs and advertising, motion graphics are constantly competing for the audience's eye and dollar. We tend to see motion graphics used a lot in advertisements and in messages and information. And the more the text moves, the shorter and simpler the text must be for the audience to be able to understand it. So if you do a lot of animation or motion graphics with like a lot of text, it's going to be very hard to read. So keep that in mind. Keep it simple, keep it consistent, easy for people to understand what you're working. Now with web, it's a little bit different, and since the internet was born, it represents the future of mass media because everything is like handed to you in that second. So that's something to keep in mind with. In the beginning of the web, simple GIF animations were common, but generally low resolution and largely garish and ineffective. However, nowadays we've been able to compress files and use more file mappings with different file sizes to really play a part with that. And Flash animation could be beautiful, but it was also slow to load a lot of times. Note, if anybody remembers, like about 5-10 years ago, computers and Mac computers started moving away from Adobe Flash and really started getting into a lot of other different developments in PHP code, and it made things a lot easier. Now that it's a small but growing movement towards animated web materials using other high-quality mobile-friendly methods. And now with the birth of mobile and applications, we've even seen further elements to use motion graphics, especially with like quick icons, symbology, and all those elements with that. And we can reach more audiences with HTML5, new Flash versions, JavaScript, and a lot of other code languages can help design programs more effectively and more visually and much easier to understand. And most of our motion graphics on the web it's mostly redistributed television, but as designers become better at using these new tools, we expect to see that. That's a lot of times you tend to see a lot that people tend to reuse because they know it works. But over time, when we start understanding the tools and the specific techniques that we have with them, we can really utilize them to something more. And that's something to keep in mind with. So yeah, 3ds Max and all these programs like Maya, they had to start somewhere, and they weren't that very strong, but now there's so many different capabilities, so many different tools and different elements that you can use with them. It just makes them stronger. All right, so that's pretty much it. Just thought I'd give everybody a heads up what's going on. Just a quick review of motion graphics within different mediums. And then we'll start getting into animating this week. And it's going to be great. Do keep an eye. We have our lecture on Tuesday. Also, your initial post is due on Tuesday as well, so keep that in mind. I hope to see everybody for lecture on Tuesday. Really excited about that. And that's pretty much it. Other than that, be safe, have fun, enjoy the week, and I'll see everybody later. Have a great one.